I've been reading Prince Harry's book, somewhat controversial book called Spare. Anybody else been reading it? No, I don't want to read that book. No, not that book. I thought that might be the case, but there you go. Harry's real name means leader, or leader of the army. What a fitting name for Harry, given his love for the army. And yet he refers to himself as spare, or the spare, meaning the spare child or the spare heir to the throne. If something were to happen to Prince William, who is, of course, now first in line to the throne, now that we have King Charles. I still want to call King Charles Prince Charles. Anyone else want to do that? Yeah? But names are so important, aren't they? They give us our identity and they define who we are. They're also a part of our God-given identity. It's not surprising, I guess, that actually Jesus renamed some of his disciples, such as Simon, meaning God has heard, to Peter, meaning rock. On this rock I build my church. Can anyone think of any more name changes in the Bible? You're going, oh, we have to do work now. Yeah? Abraham to Abraham, wasn't it? Yeah, Saul to Paul. Jacob to Israel, yes. Yeah. Yeah, we've had Saul to Paul. Any more? There's loads. Saul to Paul, Solos to Apollos. Oh, okay. There's lots, isn't there? You'll be thinking that later. Think, oh, I remembered one. So we've got Sarah to Sarah, haven't we? Yes, Sarah meaning princess, changed to Sarah meaning mother of nations. Abraham meaning exalted father, changed to Abraham, father of nations. So names are important. And we kind of forget that names are so important. But Harry seems to use the word spare in this kind of derogatory fashion. And yet spare means more than, an extra, if you like. So it's a good thing to have more than. It's a good thing to have more than enough chocolate, isn't it, to go around? So yes, please. Now, I hope that Harry will realise that actually he's much more than just the spare to the heir. I'm sure he does really, but I hope that he'll look himself in more of a positive light. And I hope that we're looking at him more as a positive light. But maybe that's something about me and kind of what my heart is, or prayer heart is. But the way we view ourselves is very important. And I wonder if you've actually looked up your own name to see what it means. I've been taking a course by Global Prophetic International, and one of the things that we've been looking at is our own sort of identity and what's in a name, and then kind of prophetically speaking over that name. And interestingly, my husband John and I, we had the same meaning of all of our names, which is, you couldn't make that up, could you? So my first name means God is gracious, or gift of the Lord. Our second name means who is like God, or again, gift from God. And our surname, Regan, means little king. Now, when my husband stands up a little bit later, I won't embarrass him now, but he's 6'8", so you can't miss him. You'll know who he is. But little king, I think there's some irony, isn't there? And I looked up a few other names. So Katie, for instance, means pure in Greek, or innocent in Hebrew. Claire, I don't know if Claire's here today. I was talking to Claire earlier. But anyway, her name means bright shining clear. So I encourage you to actually to look up your own names and see what they mean. So do a little Google search, or ask somebody who can Google it for you, and look at what it means in the Hebrew or the Greek, and see what the original meaning is. But I do like your names. No. What's your actual name? Alexandrina. And it means Warrior Woman. Wow, that's a good name. You have? Yeah, but watch it, because she's probably praying for you, isn't she? So, mm, yeah, so there's a crossover between sort of names and stuff. Where did I get to? There you go. Yes, so I quite like church history, so I thought it would be good to learn a little bit about Dunchurch. So I get your sort of Guy Fawkes connection. That's really interesting. Where I come from, there's a little bit of a Guy Fawkes connection as well, so the plot thickens, but there you go. Anyway, I was wondering about Dunchurch and what Dunchurch actually means. So I looked up the word dun, and I don't know if you've ever done that. Dun can be an ancient fort or medieval fort. Dun can be a fortified mound. It can be a horse of a dull brown, grey, or chestnut colour. I don't know quite how that colour mixes, but that's what Google tells me. It's a valley in the Himalayan foothills. It's a newly hatched, immature mayfly, even. It can also be used in a rap. So, like the word son or mate, so it could be, what's up, Dun? I'm not very down with the kids these days, but what's up, Dun? There you go. It can also be a dun-dun, which is an African drum. And also the word dun has been used in Shakespeare, in Macbeth, and also Milton in Paradise Lost. Anybody knew that? Yeah, our warrior knew. You can look up the quotes, but it's in there. But the most likely context for dun in Dunchurch, which you probably all know, or some of you will know, is relating to debt. So dunning is to make demands for a payment. And an organisation, therefore, duns its members for payments. So dun is also a noise or a grunt to demand a payment. Now, I thought about practicing that, but then I thought, no, I won't. But you can practice that later, okay? So it's a noise or a grunt for asking for payment. And I thought, this is a strange place that I've been asked to come and preach. Do I have to pay to get in? And I thought, no, they won't be asking that. You know I'm joking, don't you? I think you realise that I kind of like to joke around a bit. There's more to come, but there you go. But God has a sense of humour, doesn't he? So I think he likes us to laugh and to smile. That's all part of being human. So Dunchurch, so what about the word church? And church, of course, can be used as the word for the building, but actually it's more than that. It's the people, it's the assembly, it's the gathered people, it's the ecclesia. And if you take away this building, you are still the church. But you know that, right, don't you? Because you've done that. Yeah, you've worshipped somewhere else without your building. And church is the people. This building's beautiful, but church is the people. And when I was praying about what to bring this morning, I was directed to this passage in Matthew, and I thought, why Matthew, God? And then I kind of chuckled to myself because I realised that there was an obvious connection because Matthew, of course, was a tax collector. He did a lot of dunning for his job. Earlier in Matthew's Gospel, we hear about the call of the 4 fishermen, and we read from chapter 4. As Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. And this came right at the start of Jesus' ministry. So he'd been baptised in the River Jordan by his cousin John. I heard that Nikki's going to be baptised soon, aren't you? Is that right? Katie, sorry. I'll get your name right eventually. I've asked her 3 times, but there you go. Anyone else going to be baptised? One other, so I'm told. Maybe more, you never know. But anyway, he'd just been baptized in the River Jordan, and then he'd taken himself off to Capernaum in Galilee, which was the other side of the Lake of Galilee. And he was walking along the shoreline, and then there was two sets of brothers. So he called them, and they dropped immediately what they were doing. We were told that they joined him at once. And immediately, there was no umming, there was no ahhing. It's like, oh, no, we have to go and do this. It was like, no, we're coming with you. Ministry is a lonely place, and Jesus didn't do it alone, and we shouldn't either. We need one another. We all need our friends along the way. If the gospel message was to be shared, then he needed his disciples to share it for him. As we know, Jesus was eventually to die on the cross. And in the same way, he needs us now to carry on with his work. As we follow on through Matthew's gospel, Jesus continues with his healing of people, of casting out demons. And then in chapter 8, verse 18, he meets with other would-be followers. And the one says, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus says, no, let the dead bury their own dead. And it kind of seems a bit harsh to us, doesn't it? But he needed that immediacy of people saying, yes, okay, I'm going to come with you. His ministry actually was very short. What was it, 4 years? Jesus was kind of saying, no, you have to come now. You have to respond now. Don't wait, because something else might come along and distract you. Are you going to come and follow me or not? And Jesus continues with his teaching and his healing, and eventually he comes across Matthew. And Matthew's name means gift of Yahweh, or gift of God. So who was he? Matthew was very different from the fishermen. Matthew, in contrast, was a very educated man, a tax collector, a local customs officer, if you will, collecting duties for Herod Antipas from all the imported goods that would come across into the harbour, and every caravan that would come past on the road, and he would take in all the money. I think compared to the fisherman, he was probably a bit posh, really. That's the way I like to think of him. I don't know if you think of him that way or no. But taxmen, of course, were despised. Who would like someone demanding money from you? I guess not that much has changed today, has it? The taxmen's always looked a little bit, a bit sort of, it was one of those jobs, isn't it? Sort of estate agents and taxmen. I used to be an estate agent at one stage, but there you go. This involvement, he had sort of involvement with pagan currency, so he would be taking pagan currency, and had a reputation for, taxmen had a reputation for being dishonest, which meant that most people would keep their distance from Matthew and other tax collectors. And I guess it's like today's sort of loan shark, isn't it, really? So a loan shark we wouldn't really want to have anything to do with. You know, there's a bit of animosity there. So what else about Matthew? If we read the same account in Luke's gospel, then Matthew is referred to as Levi. In Mark's gospel as well, he's called Levi. And some have suggested that Matthew has two names. In a way, he did. But it's Matthew in the Greek and Levi in the Hebrew. So perhaps it depended on what part of the country you were coming from as to what you would actually refer to him as. From Luke's gospel, we learn a little bit more about him. He is Levi, son of Alphaeus. Levi meaning joined or in harmony, and Alphaeus meaning changed. So not only is Matthew a gift from God, he is also harmony and born out of change. This is his God-given identity. This is Matthew's God-given identity. Our calling and our name and our identity in God is one and the same. So what of Dunchurch Baptist Church and its identity? Dunchurch Baptist Church is a free church. It's not tied to the state. It's a Baptist church. It's free. And it's the free bit, I think, that's important. If you come in burdened down, you don't have to leave that way. Jesus has paid the price already. There's no done here. There's nothing owed here because Jesus has already paid that price. The price is already paid for any sin or wrongdoing. This is the place where people find freedom from their debts. That is part of the identity of this church. Freedom from debt, freedom from enslavement, freedom from the things that tie us down. It's the place where people are set free. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Saviour's ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love, unending grace, amazing grace. Do you believe that? I hope so. Some of you do. But names are so important and identity is so important. And so there's Matthew in his little booth, his little office, if you like, and Jesus comes along and says, "Follow me." And like the 4 fishermen, Matthew just puts down what he's doing and follows Jesus. There's no arguing, saying, well, maybe later I just need to do this. He simply answers the call and follows Jesus. And Jesus ends up at Matthew's house having a meal with him. And we're told that many other tax collectors and sinners come as well and join them. In other words, Matthew just invites his mates around and says, come and join us for a meal. And they sit at the table and they eat together. If we read in the Good News translation of the Bible, the word they use is instead of outcast, is sinners. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with the tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but those who are ill. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." The Pharisees were well known for their devotion to the religious law, and they were picking holes in what Jesus was doing. Why on earth would he be so familiar with the unrespectable, with the lowest in society? But that's exactly who Jesus spent time with and exactly who he calls us to spend time with. There's no grandeur in church, or at least there shouldn't be. And in Jewish culture, sitting and eating with someone actually was significant. It was an intimate thing to do, and it implied religious acceptance of a person. It established a bond between them. It meant that their sins were forgiven. He said to the Pharisees, "But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Or as the Good News version puts it simply, "It is kindness that I want, not animal sacrifice. I've not come to call respectable people, but outcasts." Excuse me, frog. It's quite a bold statement to make, isn't it? Animal sacrifices were made to God, and it's perhaps a way of hinting that he's the Messiah. And by saying that he's coming to do something, also implies that he's come from somewhere with a divine mission. And Jesus is quoting from Hosea 6 and verse 6, which reads, "I want your constant love, not your animal sacrifice. I would rather have my people know me than burnt offerings to me." Jesus is saying he wants mercy. He wants us to show compassion and mercy to others, to be kind and to be generous. For people to be understanding of difference and to show grace. The original Hebrew word for the word mercy is hesed, which conveys an idea of strong covenant faithfulness and love, a promise, if you like, to do that. That's what he wanted from them. That's what he wanted from the disciples, and that's what he asks from us. It's never about just giving money. He wants our heart. He wants something much deeper than what's on the surface. And he calls people like Matthew, those who were considered outcasts of society. And he calls people like you and I, who don't deserve his love, but he wants to lavish his love on us anyway. That's grace. He says to the Pharisees, with a touch of sarcasm, if you have no need of God's mercy, then excuse me, but I'd like to get on with my work. Jesus' whole mission and his identity was to proclaim love and mercy and true acceptance and to bring forgiveness and salvation. And that's what he continues to bring. That is the heart of the gospel. And in the same way that Jesus called his disciple, he calls us as well. He calls us into the kingdom of God to come and follow me. Don't wait. Don't give excuses. Time is short. None of us know how long we have. He calls us to be and to live in our full identity. He calls us to be, and he says, come and follow me and do as I do. He calls us warts and all. He doesn't say you have to be perfect. He just says, come and follow me. He offers forgiveness and freedom. He calls us like he calls the disciples to serve and follow him. He calls us to use all of our God-given gifts, whatever they are. Be we a fisherman or a tax collector or a housewife or an estate agent or, I don't know what jobs you are, whatever. He still calls. And he calls us at different times in our life to do different things. Maybe there's a role in the church that he's calling you to do. Maybe it's just something small like making the tea and coffee. Maybe it's something more significant. He calls us now. Don't wait to answer. He calls us now to get right with him. And maybe that's for the first time, but don't wait. Say yes to him. Today he asks, will you come and follow me if I but call your name? It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. He's calling you now. He's calling your name. And it's time to step out in your identity with him. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? So will you? Maybe you're hearing that for the first time. Maybe God's been nagging you. He often has to nag me. But maybe it's time to step out. Maybe it's about recommitting yourself. But whatever it is, it's time to answer the call. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name?